What's happening, YouTube? This is Something Easy to Sounds tutorial on how to make really freaking huge cosplay swords. Now, this is my version of Kisame Samahada from Naruto mixed with Guts' Dragon Slayer from Berserk. Now, what I did for mine is I started by gathering all my materials. And the first material I gathered was my wooden dowel. It's about 6 feet 5 inches long, and it goes down the entire length of the sword. Now, I'm like 6'3", so a few inches taller was okay for me, but make sure that you have yours. That's not gonna bump into walls, bump into people, and gonna be impossible for you to hold. But something else you don't want to do is just leave this a singular dowel. What I did is about 1/3 of the way down and 2/3 of the way down this whole sword is I put 2 more smaller dowels right on top and right beneath the main dowel to give it a little more support and to give the foam you use something more to grab onto. The next thing you want to get are what I got were 2 3-foot long, 1 foot wide, 2-inch thick styrofoam blocks. Now, you don't have to go with styrofoam, you can go with pink foam or whatever, but the styrofoam is easiest to shape your sword to. Now, with this sword, it was fairly easy because all I had to do was round out the end and sharpen the sides out, and then add duct tape to the sides to make sure that the foam wouldn't flake off. But there are much more intricate swords out there than this. Say, Cloud, for instance. But what you want to do is get something easy to mold, like, say, styrofoam. What you want to do after you get the styrofoam is get, say, a paper mache, a fiberglass, a Wonderflex kind of material, and you want to make a mold out of the styrofoam you just carved. Now, I went with paper mache simply because it's cheap and you really don't need this mold more than to hold the foam you're going to use, because if you have fiberglass, A, it smells really bad when you cut it, and B, it's really tough to cut, and with Wonderflex it just gets really expensive, and you could do so much more with both fiberglass and Wonderflex, so save it up. Just go with paper mache. It's easy to cut, it's cheap, and it works. What you want to do is you want to cover the styrofoam blocks in the paper mache in order for it, and you want to make it really tight. You don't want any creases, looseness, whatever. Make sure that the paper mache is attached firmly to it. And then what you do is once it sits and it's dry, you remove it from the styrofoam. Now, in order to do this, you should wrap your styrofoam blocks in a trash bag and something removable. And once you get the styrofoam free of the paper mache, you have your 2 molds that the foam can then assort itself to. Now what you want to do is you want to put the 2 molds on top of each other somehow, glue them, tape them, clamp them, all 3 if possible, and then fit the dowel through both of them. Probably have it standing upright, don't lay it down. And what you want to do is you want to get a foam. Now, I got a certain expanding foam that you find in the insulation aisle in Lowe's, Home Depot, stores like that. But be careful with what you buy, because some of these foams don't expand at all. Some of them expand a little bit, and some expand a lot. So be careful what you buy, read the instructions, and make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Now what you really want to do is you want to drill a tiny hole in the bottom, maybe leave a gap in the middle, and keep the top open. And that gives you 3 entry points for the foam to get into every single area you need it to be. Now the foam, being foam, is also very light. but it's a huge freaking sword, so weight's going to accumulate. Once you let that sit and dry, remove your mold. Now, there's spots in my sword where you couldn't remove all of the paper mache, so it's not the end of the world if you can't remove it all, but you want to remove most of it. And now the foam doesn't really color very well with paint or anything else. That's why, in order to get the color for Gatz's sword, I use duct tape. Now you can lay a bunch of other stuff down over it and get the color you want, but the more basic the better. So, all in all, these swords are effective, they're durable, they can take hits, they can, hopefully you won't have to, but they can give hits, and they're lighter than most other materials thanks to the foam. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and Stevie, if you're watching this, don't hate.